Look, we lost a preseason game and we lost it to Tottenham, so of course there's going to be a lot of questions. So we're going to answer them. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You block me on Twitter. You ain't gonna. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ArsenalVision Podcast Mailbag Edition. That's right. Look, there's been a lot of questions raised by losing a preseason game, and my personal opinion is we shouldn't have done it. We shouldn't have done it. There are questions like, why did we do it? Will we ever do it again? Should we sack, the manager, obviously, but what about everyone? Sack everyone. These are questions we have to answer, and so we will. I'm kidding, but only a little bit. We're going to answer your questions. This is a mailbag episode, and we have awesome questions. So they range from, competition questions about different players like Kai and Gyokeres. There's questions about Eze, of course, Saudi and LFC, Liverpool getting cozy together, helping each other shift some money around. Of course, that's a cool thing to watch happen. It's always beautiful when two clubs find each other, in the vast expanse of the football landscape. There's questions about what represents success this season, which is a question I think we tackle every summer, but it's always a good one to refresh with, and our tough start. So lots and lots of good questions. In typical AVP fashion, we will answer 2 of them in 90 minutes. That is our commitment to you. We may have a scouting video coming this week, depending on whether the jacket links are real. I know that's not how you say his name, but I like it. Tim had a really good social media post using all the different jacket analogies. But he is a talented young center back, and we may very well get him. And that's an interesting one to consider. So I think it's Jacquet is my guess. Probably not jacket, but maybe he's a potato. Jacket potato. You ever heard of that? Is that something they say over there? I don't know. Anyway, we got a lot of good stuff going on Patreon, but I've already used up my time to tell you about it. So just go sign up, use code AVP50, and you get half off on everything, including the instant reactions that'll be happening twice this week because we play 2 games. And here to discuss maybe that, but a lot of other stuff is Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And we've got holidays. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. So we're with the skeleton crew today, just me and Clive tackling your questions. But that means we might even get to 3 of your questions. Clive, do you think what can we commit to here? What's the number?
I like your 2 shout. That felt normal. You know what I mean? We'll extrapolate that.
1 before the ad break, 1 after the ad break. Makes it easy for me to know where to drop that in. Yeah. Well, look. So first things first. Let's get to the important thing. How quickly after it became available did you buy that kit? Man, I was on there lickety split. I was waiting for it to go from "we'll be back soon" to live, and I ordered it. I do like that kit. I did not get the blue one, but I got the new one.
The blue one will be winging its way to me. I stay away from white tops. It's not. You get my chicken stuff on it, mate. It's no good, right? So and
it also has a bad association, if we're being honest.
Exactly. I'm not buying no Arsenal white stuff. But lots of people love it, and fair play to them. I love the way they put the outfits together in like casual clothes, and it's becoming very much a fashion item now. And so it looks really good. The players look fantastic in it. I have been caught in a room with the footballers doing modelling. Trust me, you realise all your imperfections quite quickly. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that all of a sudden, how good you're feeling about the 2 pounds you lost. You're not feeling so good about this. Not feeling so good about it anymore when you're looking at people who are 6% body fat on a bad day, unless it's Brian Mbuemo, who made me feel better about myself. I don't know if you saw the pictures going around.
I did. There is a saying when you're a sprinter, all your power's in your bottom. Well, he must be really sharp because the man has a big bottom. But there you go.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the picture, you can look at it. The unfortunate thing, right, is like the real picture is out there, and it's like, oh, okay, he needs to play himself back into shape a little bit more. But then people with the AI slop machine did their thing, and next thing you know,
I haven't seen it.
The guy's looking like me after a bowl of mac and cheese. So. Not great.
I haven't seen it, but obviously a bit of Man United scouting was yesterday. So, I thought that was quite interesting, really. But we'll be fine.
All right, let's get right into it, Clive. I think we'll start with Eze stuff because I think that is top of mind right now for people, and we're still in the transfer window. We'll get to what is success this season. That's sort of the home run question of the day. But this one comes from Stevie Mo, and he says very simply, are you happy with the window if we don't get Eberechi Eze?
Yeah, I'm happy with the window, but I want Eze, right? And and I'm not even sure why I want him, because when you first brought his name up, so I'll give you a shout. You brought him up, and I immediately half dismissed it because I felt he was
Because I brought it up.
No. I half dismissed it because obviously everyone likes the player. It's not a problem with him as a player. He's a wonderful footballer and he brings so much happiness and joy to any space he's in. So you can't not like him. But I found it tactically, I thought it was very similar to Smith Rowe. Not quite a left winger. Not quite, well, he's more of a number 10, but not quite a left 8. Really is number 10, and we sort of had one. Do you see what I mean? He happened to be the captain of the club. And so Smith Rowe I always had challenges with once he, once he tried to drop deeper, it wasn't really working out. I could see the tactical fact it just wasn't quite a fit. So I just looked at Eze in the same way. And then you mature your thinking and you think about what football is, and then you look at what happened last season when our dependence on Martin Odegaard was so huge and we had to play him through some obviously tough times. And you think about what we're trying to do, how the season has changed, how we're looking at 60-plus games. And he's got somebody that's 27 years of age and he really wants to play and can play and is really in his position, is in the top 5 in the league. And there's an opportunity to get him out of there for around 60 mil, just under maybe.
Yeah.
You got to look at it, right? You just have, when he's smashing in shots from 20 yards consistently inside the foot, curling it top, whipping it bottom left, set pieces, carries. There's so much data out there now, no one can hide. Look at the carry data of him, Madueke and Saka. It's right up there, top of the charts. You think to yourself, we need this stuff. The game is becoming so ultra organised now, particularly defensively. You need people who are top of the take-on charts that can really challenge people, move people around. And that's one thing that this, when people look at pre-season, I get the ump, if I'm honest with you, Elliot. I get the ump when people sort of put almost too much on it. But you got to look at a game and sort of pull something out. And then you're looking at Arsenal as a club, and you can just say, okay, we need a 9. We need a 9. I don't care who it is. We need a true 9, and I think we've got the right type of 9. So, and I just want to see more people good on the football. Just that's it. Good on the football that can make something out of nothing, create their own shot, create their own pass, where we can't see it. I want more of those people. Simple as that. Happy one-on-one, happy challenging around the edge of the area. Because we're seeing a lot of attack versus defence games. And so that I can take that away from pre-season without putting too much on the game. Do you see what I mean? And I want that at Arsenal. I really, really do. And they're the things that make you excited and make you get off your seat. And more people that do that, the more the environment will be really positive for everybody. So, yeah, I'm behind it, Elliot, even though I don't know where he's going to stand yet and I don't really care.
I think you can understand from a lot of the questions we got. I mean, we got literally a couple hundred questions this time, and a lot of them were around what's the tactical evolution, how are we going to break down teams in this way. Like, people know where the concerns are. They're very squarely focused on them, and they're looking at them from two different perspectives, talent and tactics. Eze feels like an important part of that. I think my answer to the question is a simple one line. If we don't get Eze and also don't upgrade our left-hand side beyond what we added with Nani Madueke, I will not feel that the window was a failure, but I will feel that we failed to go as far as we could have to really strengthen this group to compete on all fronts. Okay, so it doesn't have to be Eze, but I do think a left-sided attacking player would be, one more of those, would be the really ambitious move to steelman this season in the way that it needs to be, especially in light of what I regard as some very good opposition. I mean, there have been a lot of seasons where it was just Liverpool or City. And then, maybe a season or two there where we thought it was just City or us. And the truth is it's City, it's Liverpool, it's us. I think it's probably too soon to say it's Chelsea, but they've certainly got a lot of talent there. And if it coalesces in the right way, they might be interesting. It's getting to feel like a pretty competitive Premier League again. And so, yeah, I think that would be the steelman move. Now, I think this question from Doozy123, we can answer it kind of quickly, but Clive, he says, I would be happy for Arsenal to sign Eze, but isn't it fair to wonder whether there are younger left-sided attackers who would be cheaper than Eze and still provide a nice talent boost? Is he so good that Arsenal should just lock in on him? If people feel comfortable praising signings of Christian Mosquera, for example, could a similar signing for the attack instead of Eze be a shrewder bit of business? What do you think about the idea of investing in the future the left-hand side rather than the right now the left-hand side?
Yeah, Elliot, I've been swept up in this as well, right? So end of season, the player I would have chose would have been El Khanous from Leicester.
Yeah.
And that's the player I wanted. It's very similar in profile. Plays off the left, can play in the sort of left 10 role. Right footer coming in. We've got loads of lefties. We've seen a new one bursting onto the scene in pre-season, so we don't need another lefty off the right on that half of the pitch. We need someone with a right foot off the left who can create. We're all looking at Trossard, potentially looking at his age and thinking, okay, maybe it's time to move that one on. We've had a 27-year-old centre forward. Well, most of our core of our group now are 25, 26. All travel up the age group together, and we've got the 23-year-old wide men, and centre backs. So we're in a good position. So maybe a younger attacking wide left player that can drop inside as well. And El Khanous was my sneaky 20 million euro option. But then that feels like a B-side now, doesn't it? It's almost as though the expectation has risen. And that just feels silly now, We want Eze, Rodrigo or Leao. We want A-side players that jump off screens. We're not prepared to develop. Let's be honest, people weren't having Sesko because they thought he was going to take too long to develop. So the environment that you're looking at and judging the team by has changed. Now suddenly, we're looking at two 27-year-old forwards coming in. And that feels right. Even though it's not, if you know what I mean, age curve-wise, etc., etc. But where we are, we're thinking short-term, and we're thinking this is what we need to do. And okay, sports science has gone up, and people stay in good shape longer. I mean, Trossard 30, and let's be honest, he's still a really good player. And so El Khanous now. If I say let's go and buy El Khanous, what would everyone say? What would they do? They wouldn't have it.
Not ambitious enough.
Not ambitious enough. They wouldn't have it. And that's where I was, end of season. So my hands are up. I thought we need a righty. We're going to spend on a centre forward. We're going to spend in centre midfield. I knew we'd get another. I thought we'd get another defender. Back at goalkeeper was obvious. A right foot defender was obvious, because we just worked Timber and White and Saliba too hard. So we need another one there to have 4 strong right footers. With 4 strong left footers, lose one, fine. So the right footer of the side attacking player, I was prepared to go younger, but I feel silly now because now we're in a place where we need something ready to go, right? So Eze fits the bill.
I thought this was sort of maybe a bit of a cheeky question from Timmy, but on the same topic of Eze, is signing Eze to play left 8, admitting the Declan Rice signing was a mistake if he isn't first choice 6 and has to share the left 8 minutes. Now, to be clear, that's Timmy's words, not mine. There's no world where signing one of the best players in the world is a mistake, and a player who has, I think, been the single biggest transformative factor in us going from being a roughly mid-table team to a team competing for a title. Every time Rice has played for Arsenal, Arsenal has been very good and often great. So I don't think there's any world where the signing was a mistake. But I do think the question is a good one that we can touch on just briefly, which is, if it is Eze, he has the opportunity to play in a left 8 role in a way that I think people envision adding a little more dynamism to that side of the pitch and maybe a little more natural sort of pocket play right there at the top of the box, right? So that then puts the eyes back on Rice and what his role would be. Do you see that tension at all, or is that something fans worry about maybe more than we need to?
Yeah, well, it depends how you see it. You've always seen that left 8 role as you'd like it to be more attacking. Until you see people run down the middle of the pitch in transition, then you forget
Clive,
those
I'd like
sorts.
all the positions to be more attacking. Goalkeeper should be up there feeding the ball in Gyokeres.
Just remember how you felt in the Newcastle game for 15, 20 minutes with no Declan Rice on the pitch and suddenly people running through our midfield. You didn't feel comfortable. Pre-season or not, you didn't feel comfortable. We knew we were working people in and etc. But I didn't feel comfortable with it. And you don't realise what you have until you don't have it, right? So, but I don't see Eze as a left 8. Unless it's emergency situations, I see him as a wide lefter that plays Trossard style, or I see him as a number 10. And maybe we'll see a 2+1 on occasions, a classic 4-2-3-1 front 4 diamond attack. We'll see that. So we're adding somebody.
Looks like Liverpool are going to that, by the way.
Yeah.
Or at least have been trying it in preseason.
Exactly. And so we're looking at, we've got a natural left and right with Zubimendi and Rice. Rice is happy on the left 6, if you know what I mean. Double 6 is probably his favourite position, and he can travel. Give him space to travel into, then he'll do it. You know, Marino can do it next to Zubimendi. That's not a problem. I think Marino's probably more attacking than Rice. I think you know, hit the box better, or he can hit the box better. And so what we're doing, we're adding configurations. That's what we need to do. And so try to take away from that V in midfield on occasions, you know, in front five with two attacking mids up there, receiving the ball in certain parts of the pitch that maybe don't always suit them. But I think it could be a 2+1 quite easily with fullbacks pushing in and pressing on and supporting those wide pods. So it's all available. And again, I come back to the core. What do I want to see? I want to see people who can receive the ball, and I feel like something's going to happen from the moment they receive it. From the moment that ball stops and it starts again, the picture needs to move and change. And if we can connect with each other as a group, then that's it for me. So you need like-minded people with the right IQ to do that. You know, so that's why with Eze, I don't want to put him in a position. I just want him on the grass, receiving the ball lots of times to help influence that side to be far more prominent in our attack.
Yeah, and Gyokeres and Load asked a question, but I'm just going to state it almost as a point, saying that Eze could help Ethan's progress. If he plays off the left, it supports more of an Ethan style right 8 or right-sided attacking midfielder, because Ethan is more of a ball-carrying, dribbling, shooting 8, and Eze can be more of a linking, distributing, you know, playmaking 8, and so they might be more compatible. Whereas, you know, if you have Rice on the left, it may not be as much of a natural pairing with Ethan. So these are all interesting questions that we can look at.
So many configs there. If you think about Ethan playing with a Havertz a bit more of an all-rounder, set him up, carry bodies around him, then Ethan can be more of a shooting, striking 10. Do you know what I mean? And then you have a runner in Gyokeres, and then you have a through ball expert in Odegaard. You can see that he needs sprinters. He needs people running away from him. That's all the sprinters play. You know, so many things you can do. You just need the options, right?
Well, it leads to an interesting question about Odegaard's role in general. And I think a lot of the analysis of Odegaard right now is predicated on thinking he's the player we saw last season rather than the season before. Because if he's the player from the season before, I think 95% of the questions about Odegaard don't exist. But football moves quickly, and I don't think, as much as I think Odegaard is much more the player we saw 2 seasons ago than last season, I also don't think it's intellectually fair to just dismiss questions about it. So I hope that that's good enough preamble to keep everybody happy. Outlaw Bebe from our Discord asked, I know Clive hates talking about first 11s. Don't worry, Outlaw Bebe. I've got you here. But I do think it's safe to say there's some undroppable players who make the first 11 regardless of opposition. And I think that is fair. Raya, Saliba, Gabriel, Saka, Rice, and once upon a time, Odegaard. Without piling on to the hate fest, no hate fest here, should we at least entertain the conversation that he's no longer undroppable? If the rumors are true that we want Eze and a left wing, many supporters are struggling to see where he fits in the team. Even Clive has suggested, now we're going to put some words in your mouth here, Clive, careful. Even Clive has suggested this. Does it not become easier to see where he can fit if you no longer rate Odegaard as undroppable? And I'm going to pick this up just for a second before I turn it over to you, Clive. I think this is fascinating, even if you think Odegaard is more the player of 2 seasons ago, because you start to look at Gyokeres as the striker, and now you have a midfield group that could include players like Rice. Forget Zubimendi in the 6, but in the more advanced midfield roles. Rice, Kai, Marino, Ethan, Eze, if we get him, Odegaard. That's a talented group where you got to pick 2 of them every game. It gives a lot of options for rotation and freshness, certainly, and maybe opportunities to change tactics. But I do think it is fair to say certain players fall into what I regard as an undroppable category. Like, I think if Rice is fit, I don't see us starting games without Declan Rice. At least I wouldn't want to see that happening. So what do you think of that? That Odegaard's status as sort of a first name on the team sheet type player might evolve this season given the volume of midfield options that we've collected?
Yeah, so when we did our stuff last year, our pre-season stuff, I didn't really get the volume of games, how the Champions League would change my thought process about the schedule. I wasn't a first 11 guy anyway, Elliot, but I do think we've developed into a squad of 14, 15 over the last couple of years, and we tried to change that this year. But the Champions League change, particularly 2 games in January, really did change my thought, and I think we got caught out by the strength of the schedule. You know, we don't know who we're going to face in Champions League, going away at Inter Milan, going away at Atlanta, going away at Sporting. That's 3 big away games there, you know? And proper teams at home to PSG, the eventual winners. You know, proper games, you know, really strong games that take something from you. I've said it many times before, but last January we played 9 games. January before we played 3 games. A significant difference to what we're trying to do. So even more so, I'm less concerned about first 11s, particularly for the first third of the season. Particularly, I just don't care. I care about having players in the right condition. Because that was clear to me. We did not have the players in the right condition for those key critical games. That's why we chucked league games around the quarterfinal and semi-final of the Champions League, because we just couldn't manage it. We just couldn't manage it. And if you want to win stuff, and whoever wants to win on the listeners to these podcasts, we need to have players in the right condition in winning time. And so I just don't... If Odegaard doesn't play for 2 games, that needs to be okay. It's also an indicator of the standards rising, because every one of us would expect him to play. At any time, we just don't care if he's injured. He'd get injured in games and stay on until the last 5 minutes and then be there at training. Same for Saka, booted to death, there at training, and then there next game. You know, this is how we've operated. And we're trying to change this, right? Everything around, you just listen to the people that are close to the club, listen to the mantras coming out. It's about raising the standards. And the first time this sort of happened, we weren't comfortable with, including myself, when we changed Ramsdale for Raya. That's about raising the level, raising the standards. And we sort of bucked against that trend slightly and then saw the play and saw how it changed how we play. And we're trying to do the same again. And we need to be comfortable with it. And I don't know what's coming, but I do know if you buy 7 players, he says, air quotes, in one summer, we're going to have more choices. We're going to have more styles of play. That's why I'm running to get to the Emirates this week, to see what we do and to see what partnerships work the best on a proper grass pitch with the ball moving at speed, and we've got some energy and a bit fitter, and we're in the right time zone to go and play like Arsenal play. By Saturday night, I will know a lot more about what we're trying to do and who's what and how our attack has changed and how we've evolved. I know a lot more by Saturday night.
Let me ask you this thing quickly, because you mentioned it. Benson asked, what should we think about #the process, since we're suddenly in need of buying 6 to 8 players? And I thought this was sort of interesting because it does sneak up on you, right? Like, I thought we've had a very good process. We've built a very good team doing things pretty efficiently and effectively. But all of a sudden, if you need 8 players, I think it's fair to say, you know, has your process been as good as it should be? Do you have any thoughts on the fact that we've suddenly felt so much was needed this summer vis-a-vis how the process has been structured in the past couple of seasons?
Yeah, so this is for those people in the comments that say, "Oh, here goes Clive with his corporate stuff again." Well, I'm going corporate, right? So I'm going corporate because we've reached a place in our life cycle where the manager's got a 3-year contract in his back pocket. We've got a new sporting director, we've got new coaches, and we've had a recommitment to increase budget to support the manager in his goals. That's clear for everyone to see, right? The way we've operated this year, this is not normal. Nobody listening was think we're going to get 6 people. We always want 6. We never actually get them. Now we want 7, right? So, and if we sell a couple, we want 8, right? So, and we're all comfortable with that all of a sudden, you know, because we know we need a form of renewal, but really it's a form of reinvigoration. When you've been at the club 5 seasons, into 6th season, wherever it is, you need to change your message. You need to change the environment. You need to reinvigorate people. This is just classic renewal in a high-performance team environment, but you need to almost lift it, Elliot. It's almost like a, boom, reset. We're doing things differently, with more intensity, with more focus, renewing our goals, really restating our goals. This is why the manager was smiling after the tour last week. Because he knew the stuff that he wanted to get out of the tour was making sure our bonds are there together. He probably knows that Saka's going to sign a contract. He probably knows Steve's going to sign a contract. Tell me what's going wrong apart from us winning the trophies. All our key people are going to be renewing their contracts. So there's a level of confidence about what we're doing, a level of confidence about how we're operating. There's a level of investment in those key players' careers for making sure there are players around them. It doesn't mean they got to play 60 games. And shorten their careers and shorten their opportunity to make money, right? So he's looking at this and he's thinking, right, I'm going to go again. I'm not bringing in no 1990 coach. I'm bringing in somebody who's going to put more pressure on them. More pressure to really look at those fine details, get more, extract more performance, more stronger mentality out of them. So if I'm the manager, I'm going again with new energy, and that needs to be supported by change. And change, the best way we can see change is by new people coming in. It's not keeping the same people. If anything, we stalled last year with a couple of signings and a couple of loan signings. The two signings we had, they were injured for half the season. And the loan signings, we weren't too happy with them. We lose our sporting director during the season, and we paused. We scored 22 less goals. We paused. We had some European nights, but let's be honest, we paused. We stepped sideways, stepped back. And that's the lasting memory that we have. We've forgotten Madrid, we've forgotten PSG. The lasting memory was we didn't quite cut in the league. We didn't do it. And you can tell that lasting memory is there because how people have reacted to a pre-season friendly defeat.
I think my absolute most critical, nitpicky view is that last summer was a mistake. That we could have used our available resources to make ourselves better in the ways we needed to, and long-term those choices could have made this an easier window and maybe even made it easier for us to be very aggressive in the areas we wanted to. That doesn't mean I don't necessarily rate the players we got. I'm just not sure that what we targeted was right. And if you read some of the reporting now and you look at some of the ways Andre Berta is operating and you read between the lines, I'm not sure the thinking was as joined up last summer as it needs to be, Clive. And I think that can be seen in the outcomes.
I mean, there's no argument for me. I think Tim and Paul, I'm going to talk in the spirit of them right now. I think Tim said it beautifully around there's certain windows that are PSR windows where you have to do a little bit less. And now this year, we're doing a little bit more. And we're not the only ones because obviously Chelsea are different. But Liverpool and City, they paused last summer as well. But they just had a better, stronger base. We've done City, but Liverpool had a better base and they weren't done their work, right? So they bought one player and a goalkeeper they loaned out. So it's the same players, right? So we bought two big lefties and two loan players. And I wish we hadn't got the loan players because we might be able to wiggle in January when we were dealt with a crisis, particularly with Sterling. I'd rather kept Nelson in hindsight. And then we could have wiggled in January with a loan signing and who knows what could have happened. So it's clear that I called it pause. You can say step backward, made mistakes. But those, and again, Paul says something that I really agreed with. When you got execs that are about to leave, they don't just hand their notice in on the day. They probably left 3-4 months in advance, because they've been headhunted, their head's been turned. And with Edu, I think his head was turned and maybe he wasn't quite sharp enough last summer. I've said that in hindsight now, but I could just add up, right? I just know how executives work. And so, we made mistakes. But actually, in hindsight, in pure hindsight, by not blowing our cash with an organisation which is about to change slightly, particularly at sporting director level, we gave the new guy an opportunity. But not blowing our cash in January, we gave the new guy an opportunity. And the only way you can validate that pausing is to make sure when this summer comes, you really do it.
Yep.
And so far, it seems to be we're doing it, And so I can justify it all now in my mind. Everyone wanted a striker in January because we were doing all right, particularly in Europe. We'd have loved to have seen something happen last summer. We weren't sure what, but we just wanted a little bit more, And but now when you're changing organisations like we did do, I think actually this gives the new guy a chance to really put his stamp on the club. Yeah, and that's where I am with him.
Yeah, and this is really hard stuff, but fundamentally for me, Clive, the structure and the defensive solidity of this team has been clear for multiple seasons. Okay, and so the question then shifts to how you get more at the attacking end of the pitch. And I know there's some people that'll say, hey, and I'm among them, I've said this, when we were fit, this team scored its record number of goals in the Premier League. And while that is true, I think it is only honest of me if I admit that even amidst that goal flurry, I think there were some red flags of caution about getting too confident in our attack, because when you dig into the underlying metrics, the open play chance creation, some of those data points, they're very good. Please don't get me wrong. They're very good. But they are a notch below City and Liverpool. In fact, even in those seasons, I think that season it was a notch below Newcastle. So that's not to say that the attack isn't effective. The attack is clearly effective. It is not the absolute elite. It's not the apotheosis of Premier League attacking design. And you could say that that's not actually necessary. And that leads to a question from Wisdom of Mimir, who I think gets at something that is kind of a fundamental question, Clive. And there's a couple of ways that I think we can go at this. So I'll ask his question. It says, for the past few seasons, Arsenal's defense has been their most defining trait. With the new attacking addition, should the team become more offensively focused, or should they stick with the solid defensive foundation that has brought them success? I.e., should the balance of the team be tilted more offensively like Liverpool or remain defensive like Arsenal? After all, 3 points is what wins titles.
Great question. We got some smart people. A great question, right? So, and this is one of the things I ask myself all the time. If you look at Arsenal, what are we defined as? And we're defined as a well-coached, solid, well-structured team that can play all different game states really, really well, including restarts. We do everything that's in the coaching manual. Tick, 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 tick. Have we got enough ingenuity, shall we say? Have we got enough things that we don't know what they're going to do? You know, so we probably haven't, you know, and that's why the ball goes to number 7, right? And everyone knows it goes to number 7, so they stand there. The numbers, the data will tell you everything, right? So we scored 5 more goals than Spurs last season. They lost 22 league games, right? So think about that for a second, right? So we've got goal scoring issues, shall we say, right? And the things that are just holding us up is the fact we've got the best defence in the league. So we're looking to add 2 to 3 attackers to this group and hopefully keep a couple of attackers that were really injured last year fitter. Probably 3 of our sort of really critical players in Odegaard, Havertz and Saka spent significant times either out of form, injured, just not present. 2 operations in there. And so maybe one should have had an operation, shall we say. You know, so we weren't showing our best attacking face. It can all be explained away by the fact our top scorer scored 9 goals. Never happened for 100 years, whatever it is. So we've got room to improve. If I talk about Spurs for a second, they lost 22 games. Defensive organisations all over the place. Step 1, Thomas Frank, let's organise the defence. Let's just do that, shall we? Because we can't be losing 22 games again. There'll be riots. Right? So, and so they're going to be structured, more organised, and they'll probably have some low-scoring games, but they're going to be competitive in most games. With Arsenal now, we're competitive. We can keep people in areas. We can do all this stuff. What we need to do is turn more high turnovers into shots, have a far more diversity of attack on our left-hand side, and a little bit more technical ability and running power to run through the last line, be far more direct and vertical, quicker in transition, speed of pass in transition, risk that first pass a little bit more. And I can look at the signs we've got so far, and I can see all of those things that have been resolved on paper. Now I need to see it on grass, and none of us have seen it yet. You know, so that's why I'm being patient. We just haven't seen it. We haven't seen the attackers. We haven't seen them fit. We haven't seen the units together yet. But we will do, and we'll know really quickly where we are, you know, because the problems are clear, Elliot. They're just so clear. It's just violent agreement, really. It's just a matter of when do you want to kick off about it. You know, and I'm just not ready to kick off yet. We can all see where we're not quite tip-top. Let's see what happens. Let's see what the manager does. And some of that's in the players, and some of that is how we move the ball, what our behaviours are like in transition, how we move, what we commit to. Some of that's behavioural, some of that's coaching, some of that's individual players.
Yeah, I am of the opinion that you don't have to have only one way of doing things. And I think anybody who wants to be honest, no matter how critical you are of this team, because there are some people that are quite critical and there are some people that are less, but even the most critical people would have to accept you haven't seen this version of Arsenal get outplayed by a good team in a very long time. When was the last time you saw us go up against elite opposition and look lesser? Maybe the first 15 minutes against PSG, but the rest of that tie, I'd say the opposite happened.
Yeah.
Maybe against Bayern, but I don't think I think we lacked offensive firepower. We lacked offensive strength to match them. They took advantage of mistakes. We looked a little blunt, and maybe I'm splitting hairs there. So if you want to say no, we were outplayed, I'll give it to you if you want it. But my point is, our system, however critical you want to be of it, works really well in the big games.
Yeah.
We're exceptional against the top sides. I do think, Clive, that an offensive tweak, an offensive adjustment against the rest is probably warranted. And one of the areas that I've been starting to think about a little bit that came up in the questions was about fullback. So Wikel Arteta said, how will we ever escape the horseshoe of death? Fundamentally, is this a manager issue or a personnel issue? But then Added Demolisher asked something. Say we do get Eze, do you feel we're still short in terms of an overlapping left back or right back? And this made me start to think a little bit about what Liverpool have just done with Gyokeres and Frimpong.
Yeah.
And what PSG did in dominating Europe with Mendes and Hakimi.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, even if you think Ben White can do it a bit, and I think he can do it a bit, I don't think you'd say he's a tearaway fullback who's, designed for the final third. He's added that to his game. I think Timber feels a little more comfortable in the interior, and Miles Lewis-Skelly certainly plays in the interior. And that can work, and that is very Pep-coded, as the kids would say. But we are seeing some of the best sides in Europe now win with fullbacks who overlap and in fact, even score goals and create the final pass. So in terms of the horseshoe of death, so to speak, and changing our offensive firepower, are we missing a trick not having or not deploying overlapping fullbacks?
Do I do the horseshoe bit first? Because
yeah, if you think they're tied together, link them. Otherwise, do them separately. Yeah, go for it.
I think positions, it doesn't. Names of positions, it doesn't really concern me. The core bit that concerns me is movement. And it's something that I've been saying for a long time on here about attacking the last line, running through. I don't care what number's on your back. How you attack that last line, movement activates the pass, to take a quote from a patron, which I thought was genius, because movement, when you look up and you see movement, that's when you pass it. That's when you penetrate. If you see no movement, you know what you do? You go to the side. Right? So that's when the horseshoe comes in. It's about our movement and our starting positions in the inside spaces. I was watching Manchester United last night and I was looking at what they did around their front three and how narrow they were. They were quite narrow. And I looked at that's interesting. So they almost like a front three standing in position where their back three would start. So the front three within the 18-yard box, they're quite narrow. They were trying to feed it in there to create a combination, then go to the outside. Right? So that's how they do it. We play around a block, and that's what we tend to do a lot, which I'm fine with. But then once you get to those areas, you must have underlaps or overlaps. You must have movement that forces the next pass to penetrate. And I think that's what we've lacked. I don't think we run through enough. I don't think it's a strong game state of Odegaard. I don't think he wants to do it. He wants to receive the ball with everything ahead of him, and other people got to do that running. But the thing is, he's next to our most dangerous attacker that needs people to run through so he can create combinations, right? So, and this is a side that works. On our left side, we don't really run through. Rice does it in occasions. When he gets there, he's on his wrong foot in that position. And so we really are asking people to do things maybe they're not comfortable with. So we need to have people to run through lines. And this is where the centre forward comes in. I do think he's going to run through lines. He's going to shake attacks around and people will run into the spaces that he creates. I think what he will do is that he will lengthen the pitch for us. Because I don't think he's coming back into midfield. So we have a bigger pitch from which to play, which means we need carriers to carry through those central areas, to carry through the wide areas. We're so compact that we create a team. We're a compact team anyway when we attack, but then the other team are forced to be compact because they can't really deal with us, so they got to squeeze the space and try to give us areas that they don't want to concede. So we end up playing to the style of what the opposition gives us, but we don't mind it because we like to be compact anyway and not concede. But then we are heavily reliant on one-on-one merchants in wide areas. And when they don't do it, we let them know about it. That's the truth. So we have points of failure in our attacking system at the moment. But it can be changed by good movement. You know, by moving and then trusting that movement and making sure people don't be afraid to give the ball away. Another one of my lines: just play the pass. If someone commits to a run, you're duty bound to play that pass, because at least it's going to shake the opposition. The opposition knows it's not coming. They just get comfortable and relax and stay in shape. So for me, Elliot, movement is key. Now, if you want to see a sprinty fullback in those runs, that's your taste. Me personally, I'm not worried. You know, I'm not worried, as long as we do it, and then we can decide who's better at it, etc. Gyokeres and Frimpong are excellent at doing that sort of thing. But let's see what happens. Let's see how many goals Liverpool concede. You know, I'm interested to see what happens there, right? I said to you earlier on, they don't want to be pushed back, and there are ways to get them going backwards. You know, so let's see how we go.
Yeah, it is really interesting how you can go from being solid and defensively organized to feeling like you need to emphasize the attack, to emphasizing the attack, to having no defensive solidity whatsoever, right? It can slip through your fingers very quickly. And suddenly you've got two fullbacks that want to go forward that don't defend very well. You've got a 37-year-old center back who maybe is starting to feel age.
Gets older by the minute.
39-year-old center back and the 45-year-old center back is struggling to move, and your six isn't necessarily naturally a six, and next thing you know, you've conceded 55 goals in the season and you finished sixth. And I don't want to say I just looked into a crystal ball and described Liverpool's season, but it does feel like I've just described Liverpool's season. Look, I think what we should do is talk about success this summer. By the way, we still have questions about Liverpool and Saudi Arabia's beautiful romance that's strung together, and I just think, you know, everybody loves a love story. We got to talk about Yoke versus Kai, and I want to do a section on what is success this season. I think this is the time of the summer when we start to think about that, but it's also the time of the summer where you start to think about, how am I going to watch games when I'm out of the country? How am I going to watch geo-locked videos? How am I going to watch all of the football on all of the links with the protection I need and the access I need? And the answer is, of course, as it always has been, NordVPN. NordVPN is an app you put on your phone, you put on your computer, you put on your tablet, you click, and you are browsing in the country of your choice. And so when I am over in London, as I am privileged to occasionally be, to see the Arsenal, because I've only come to see the Arsenal, but I want to watch Manchester United get humiliated by a recently promoted side or something like that, I need NordVPN so I can take advantage of my streaming package that allows me to watch games in the States that aren't available in the UK. Or maybe I want to sign up for a streaming service in another country where it's less expensive, where there's a season of my favorite show that's out in Australia, but it's not here in the States yet. I can use NordVPN to watch that show. And sometimes you're going to be on websites that you don't want, putting stuff on your computer. And NordVPN has threat protection for that as well. So we've got a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus bonus months for free, plus risk-free trial period so you can cancel anytime. Use our promo code and you get all of that great discount, and you can try NordVPN. You can watch stuff that's geo-locked. So when they say, you're not going to believe this video, it says not available in your location. It is available in your location. Use NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. That's NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. Do it now. And Shopify. It's this simple. If you've ever thought, I want to sell the thing that I make, the thing that I love, the thing that I'm good at, whether that is your art, your crafts, maybe it's your arts and crafts, maybe it's merch, whatever the case may be, Shopify is a site that makes that very simple. Because it takes off the table all the things you have to know, things about taxes and shipping and cart flow and cart optimization and checkout processing and credit card processing and how do I put my site, and then I got to build a separate site to go on Instagram and on TikTok and on Facebook. You don't. You just have to put pictures and descriptions, and then Shopify does the rest. And Fortune 500 companies use Shopify for their e-commerce site. You've shopped on Shopify sites before without even knowing it. But Shopify makes it simple. So if you want to start a business and you want to be successful at it, but you don't want to have to actually know anything about building that business, Shopify is the e-commerce platform for you. It is really that simple. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision, start selling Shopify today. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Okay. We're back. Clive, I think we can agree on this. We must have a successful season. Do you agree?
Yes.
We must.
I feel as though...
We must.
I feel as though we need to win a trophy, my son.
We must have a successful season. Everyone agrees on that. The problem is, what on earth is a successful season? That is the question we must answer, because insert name has asked this pithy question, Clive.
Yeah.
What would you consider the success this year, and what's the minimum we must achieve?
It feels like you just got to win every single game. That's the only thing that's going to keep us all happy, right? So that's key.
What about goal difference, though?
Yeah, well, I don't want to see any goals go in.
Okay. A lot go in the opposition.
Yeah,
surely.
But probably 3 every game. That would be nice. And we know we're going to be the field tilt world champions. We know that already, but we need to make sure we're the XG over performers as well. You know what I mean? And make sure XG difference is good. I think... I listened to Daniel Levy today on they did an overlap show this morning, and they asked him what was success, and he gave the classic executive answer is, we want to be competing at the top level of the game, because that allows clubs to make decisions going forward with knowing what their revenues are, right? So I'm sure if you asked anybody at the senior levels of the club, it'll be, we need to win. We seem to be going all in to win, you know, and but primarily, we need to be at the top end of the game. I need to be there because I need to know what my revenues are, plus 600 every single year, which means I can grow this club, I can grow this business, I can make sure I can borrow money to do the things I want to do down the road infrastructure-wise. I can make sure I get the right people in. I can show them where we're going, all the young players that we can show that we've got a club that's stable. I want to be competing at the top end of the game. If I lose my way, then I risk instability. And an unstable club cannot project forward with confidence, and we can't sign the people that we want. We can't renew the people that we want. If you're asking most fans now, we just want to win something now. We've had a couple of, let's take the last 3 years. We had the Zinchenko summer where he came in and with Jesus and transformed our lives and opened up a new brand of football for us. Nothing better than that pre-season. Nothing better than those first 12 games. Then the World Cup come along, and then we got a few injuries, and we injured out towards the end, and but it's all right because none of us expected that. And then the second year, it's like, we didn't start quite as good. It didn't feel quite as sunny. Then we found our way after Christmas and bang, hit maybe the peak of Mikel Arteta's Arsenal for 18 games, won 16, drew 1, lost 1. Right? So Champions League again for the first time in 7 years. Quarterfinals for the first time in 14 years. Not bad. Okay, I can deal with that. Maybe City were a touch better, though I disagree. I think we're just unfortunate. I can deal with it just about. Okay, this year, let's see what happens. And this year last season never felt quite right. It never got off the ground. It started to go wrong at Brighton at home, and we didn't quite get our health right. Maybe tactically we stagnated slightly because we tried to just add a flaw to what we already had. Because the 6 month period was so successful, we probably thought this is going to be enough. It was enough to beat City, but Liverpool came in and took everything away from us, right? So this year now, there's an expectation on it. We've had a couple of years of learning lessons and what went wrong, what we need to sort of mitigate against. We think we've done that in the market to mitigate against the squad failings and the lack of options and the lack of depth to make sure that we're healthy when it really, really matters. And now we need to add some stardust, right? So I do think we're set up better to manage the season ahead, knowing what it is, knowing the schedule, knowing what depth issues are there. I think a lot of them have been resolved. My line I said a few weeks ago, Elliot, I always want another piece of chicken. Well, Eze's that extra piece, right? And it feels like it's more important than it was even 2 weeks ago, based on what we have seen on the pre-season so far, regardless of the conditions, etc. It feels as though we have to really look at that side of the pitch properly and really address what's happening there. So for me, yes, we need to be successful. We can't deny it. But by the way, don't see that as a dead weight around you. If you're in this environment, everyone wants to win. Listen to every single player interview. What do you want to do? I want to win trophies. So don't let the external noise feel like an external pressure. It feels to me like we've never been more aligned. Inside and outside the club, everybody wants to win. And the actions are showing me that. My only thing as a middle-aged fan, my only thing is I want to see the environment correct for us to win. So I feel as though I don't want to put too much pressure on yet from the outside in until we start to play. That's my only issue. Till we start to play, the edge of 3 points is everything. So I know even in last season when we weren't at our tip-top best, when we had to bring that edge to our game, that competitive edge, particularly in big games, it was there. We were hardly bettered. Newcastle put the best time against us in the competition, which is our fourth, right? So we were hardly bettered, so that means that edge is there, and we just need to remember that and add on top of it.
Yeah, I find this conversation in particular very, very difficult because it's incredibly loaded. I think people get very upset if you don't define success narrowly the way they define success. I'm going to read a question that I'm not necessarily going to answer. Very AVP of me. But Big Red Arsenal asks, is it ever actually reasonable for fans to expect their club to win the Premier League or Champions League, given that for any team competing, the odds of not winning these competitions is always higher than the odds of actually winning? Are we not just setting ourselves up for failure if that's our only KPI next season? And I think that's also a fair point. I'm going to say this. There's a legal principle in American Supreme Court jurisprudence about pornography. And there's a famous judge who said, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. And I think success in football is similar. Yeah. I think narrowly defining it as we must win the Premier League or the Champions League is setting yourselves up to then be able to say it was failure.
Yeah.
But I think you know success when you see it. I've been lucky enough to be at the final home game for quite a few seasons now, because that's when we time our Union Chapel event.
Yep.
And I was at the home game 2 seasons ago when we beat Everton on the final day, but City won their final game against West Ham and we fell short of the title. And it was as celebratory an environment as I've experienced on a final day. The mood was effervescent. It was extremely joyous. We won nothing that season. But I don't think that fans regarded the season as failure, at least not the fans that I encountered on that final day of the season. I think if you've had a good season. And then when you try to define it just as a trophy, I think you rob it of that fairy dust, that magic that every fan kind of knows. The ride we went on 2 seasons ago was an extraordinary ride that we all enjoyed, and while it didn't bring the ultimate trophy we wanted, I experienced it as a successful season. I know there's some people who say, well, that's just a loser mentality. Small club mindset. Trophies are nothing. But given what you're trying to win, if you say it must be the Premier League or the Champions League or it is failure, that means that Arsenal have, and I've said this on this podcast before, failed every single season for 21 seasons, and in the Champions League every season in our history. And I don't regard us as a failed club. There have been wonderful seasons along the way. Now, some will say, well, Elliot, that's because you're missing the FA Cup and the League Cup. And this is where I am going to diverge again from some people. I would enjoy winning those trophies massively. Please don't take this as me saying I wouldn't, because those are wonderful experiences. But winning those trophies would not change my evaluation of whether Mikel and this project was getting closer to the goals of what I'd like it to do and where I'd like it to be. So if we finished 7th or 4th, but won the FA Cup, I would soak every minute of joy out of the FA Cup, but I would regard us as having taken a step back, Clive. That to me would be a step back. So this is what I mean about the way I started with the Supreme Court thing. I know it when I see it, and everybody defines it a little differently, but I want the ride to be fun. I want to have high moments. I want to feel like we're in the hunt for the biggest trophies. I want to feel like that hunt reflects the best of what we can be. 2 seasons ago, we got that in the league. Last season, we did not. Last season, we got it nearly in the Champions League, but those kinds of things you can feel, and I think narrowly defining it as win the Premier League, win the Champions League, or it's failure, is a way for you to miss out on a lot of the joy that the season can bring you,
Yeah. We've been very lucky enough to go to almost every home game for the last 3 years. And so comparing that year, Everton year, Elliot, to last year's one, and it was a respectful send-off. It was a supportive send-off, but people were not in the same frame of mind because it wasn't quite as joyous, right? So, but they're Arsenal supporters. So what do? When people need support, you support them. That's when people need support, not when it's like super easy and everyone's clapping on the back. And I felt it was really respectful that day. But in all of our hearts, we thought, you know what, it hasn't quite happened for us this year. We need to see a reaction. And we're starting to see the start of that reaction right now. I think the issue is, right, it's almost like people almost want you to guarantee success. And so that word guarantee is what you can't really commit to. You can go for it, though. Did we really go for it last year? We've explained maybe we didn't. And there could be good reasons for that we're not aware of. But we didn't really go for it. And even if we did, we'd have suffered so many injuries, it would have worked out anyway. But this year we've gone for it. And I don't think we're done. We need to sell well, and as we're sitting here right now recording, Keenan Dewsbury Hall is just about to be sold for 25 million, whatever it is. And Liverpool got a young centre mid called Tyler Morton, who's played in the under-21 thing in the summer, a nice steady centre mid, popping off to Lyon for 15 million. We look around us and people can seem to be able to move their assets on, and then we can dig into that, but I'm not prepared to. I'm not educated enough, but there seems to be some cosy money flying around, but not where Arsenal are concerned. We have to seem to work hard for it. So that step needs to happen so we can reinvest it to really add the icing on top of the cake, right? So, yeah, I can't tell people how to think, but I really want us to win. But I recognise that no one can guarantee it for me. And I recognise we're going to lose football matches. I recognise certain people are going to lose form. And it's how you react in those situations. Have we got the ability to react to those situations? When someone is down, have we got a chance to sit them down, or do we have to play them through? And I take it to you, last year we had to play people through bad periods of form. And we don't have to do that this year. So those first 11 people that keep saying, oh, Clive, what about this, what about that? I don't care. Because I want to see the competition level raise so form is maintained and sustained for longer. And when that edge and that detail will turn those 14 draws, I'm hopeful, into 6 draws. And that's the difference, right? That is the difference. We're trying to, if we lose 4 games, no biggie. But can we keep it to 5 or 6 draws? Because then we'll win the league. So that edge, that ability to change up, power up, change the way we're playing is everything. And that's what I'm looking to see. And that may not happen in the first few weeks, but we'll have it, hopefully, for one of the critical points this season.
Yeah, and I think you said something that's really important. I can't tell someone what they should think success feels like because it's very personal. Yep. And if someone thinks that I'm lowering the bar of expectations, maybe I am. Like, maybe that's how I protect myself so I can enjoy the journey a little bit more. Because the other thing is, am I allowed to enjoy, if we win at Anfield but don't win the title, am I allowed to have enjoyed that we won at Anfield? I want to feel the moments of celebration and excitement along the way. There are going to be moments of disappointment as well. Last season was hard because, to your point, you've said this more eloquently previously, but it never got going. And so I think it denied us, at least in the league, the chance to ever really ramp up that excitement. But I also lived through a decade where it really felt like the goal was top 4, and that was the limit of what we were chasing.
Yep.
And it feels really fun to be back in the place where the expectation, so to speak, is to compete for the title, not just try to slide into a Champions League place.
Within that construct, Elliot, of a average feeling season, shall we say, without doubt, the Real Madrid at home night was the best night I've ever experienced at the Emirates. Without doubt. Out of nowhere. It was like spectacular. Right? So maybe we were owed that for all the other games, but it was just spectacular. And I'll never forget it, right? It'll always be in my top 3, always.
Yeah. And it is the case, though, that I think projects do need a culmination. And this is where I have some sympathy for the people that would say, if not a trophy, then what? Like, I think it is fair to say that eventually your manager and your group need to win the Premier League or need to win the Champions League or something to point to as sort of the culminating moment of a project, Otherwise, it's just natural to want a refresh.
Yeah.
Now, that refresh could be a mistake. You could be getting a worse manager. You could be getting worse players. But even knowing that, I think there is something about renewal and newness that just freshens up support in general.
Yeah.
The Emery era was, in my mind, worse than any of late-stage Arsene Wenger, but that doesn't mean it was wrong to move on from Arsene at that time. So my point isn't let's move on from Mikel. My point is projects do need a culmination. They just do. I mean, Brendan Rodgers had a pretty good run with, and I'm not saying Mikel is Brendan Rodgers, but what I'm saying is he had a good run at Liverpool, but like it couldn't come to its culmination, and there was an opportunity to change, and they took that opportunity. So I'm sort of making the counterfactual. I'm creating the counterfactual. You know what I mean? The argument that I think would be against my own argument, but I do think, Clive, it is fair for some people to just say, "Hey, I need some culmination here." You know?
Yeah, we all want to win. Everybody wants to win. There's no debating this. I feel it's quite tough for us sometimes, particularly when we lose, because we then explain why we've lost. Right? So why has this happened? Why has that happened? We didn't do this, we didn't do that. Maybe we need to think about this. Maybe there's a reason why this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then you get called for making excuses. Right? So you think, well, I'm just trying to explain to you why maybe we haven't done it. You know, we were competing against Man City, probably the best Premier League team ever. You know, and they are funded differently to us, and we're competing against them. While we've been recording, Chelsea have nearly bought another 2 players. So it's just, we're in a different landscape right now. That's not an excuse, that's reality, but we're trying to fight it, right? So while we're trying to fight it, I'm always there, right? We can't guarantee it, but I'm always there. Some of those 2 previous seasons, 2 of the best seasons I've ever experienced at Arsenal. Without a doubt, because of the feeling around the ground, the unity, where we're going, without a doubt. And I've seen the league winning teams. I've seen us win away in Europe live in my own eyes. You know, I've seen everything. But those 2 seasons were really, really special. And last year wasn't as special. That's okay. That is life. But now, how do you react to that? You know, it isn't about renewal. It's about reinvigoration. It's about a step, a line. Right? And if people are committing to that new line, the people you all want to see stay, I'm cool with it. If they're cool with it, I'm cool with it. Now, there does come a point, Elliot, where you've explained really, really well, where potentially some key figures may need to move if we don't win. You know, I'm interested in the footballing evolution that could develop this year with some key pillars in the team that maybe the team will develop past, and you don't think it's going to happen, but then it just happens. And it become obvious. One of my many lines is the first 11 presents itself to you. So stop trying to pick it. It presents itself to you. It'll be clear. But what you've got to create is the options. And we haven't had enough options. So now we can watch this team develop and fight for its shirt until the 11 presents itself to us. You know, and that's what we want. And that's the exciting bit. I'm so excited to see it.
Well, gosh, that leads to I think a pretty good question from Yanko Abs, who says, can you outline your minimum expectations of the manager next season? Areas you expect improvement from him, like in-game management, for example, instead of team targets. What are your Mikel Arteta targets? Yeah,
so there are things that I like in football. You know, there are systems that I like. I try to keep them under my hat because you end up podcasting in a way where until you see your thing, nothing is good enough. Do you see what I mean? Well, how about explaining what the thing they're trying to do is and why they maybe are doing it? Whether I agree with it or not, it doesn't really matter, right? So I've always, I love to see a back 3 on occasions with 2 strikers. You know, that's what I like, you know, and but we don't play that way. So what do I mean? I don't like the team that he's presented to us, you know?
We got a Manchester United fan over here, everybody.
I don't mind it.
Amorim guy.
But I like that system until he gets picked off, then I go quiet. You know what I mean? And then, let's get back to 4-3-3 really quickly. But on occasions, I would like to see us end games in that system. I generally would, you know, because I don't want to see us have those draws again. So I'm looking at solutions in my mind, you know. The option for 2 strikers looks quite nice on occasions. I want to see what that looks like. Is it a 4-4-2, a 4-2-2, or is it a 3-5-2? What does that look like? What does it look like for Arsenal? I mean, I'm interested in that. So I like to see that come a little bit more. I don't want to see us ride and die with just the one system and plugging and playing with those players. I would personally like to see different systems, different phases of games, particularly potentially match up. I thought Crystal Palace home game was a bit of a concern for me. It's quite interesting. Whenever I say things like this, people say, "Oh, Clive, you don't criticise enough." When I say it, they don't remember. Right? So I'm telling you now, Crystal Palace home game was a concern for me. I thought they spread the pitch really, really nicely. I thought we struggled with our win-backs. I thought Eze was devastating. I thought Mateta was so strong. I know we weren't in tip-top position right then. We had other things that we were focusing on. But I also thought Manchester United concerned me in the FA Cup for the periods they had dominance for until they got the 10 men. They dropped away. So that system has caused me problems. I don't think we managed the physicality of Newcastle very well, home or away. Right? So we have weaknesses, but we're trying to address some of those things. So I would like to see us match up against some of those bigger, more physical teams with more bigger physical players to match them up and have pitch coverage. That's how I would do it, right? The manager doesn't do that, and he's lost very few of those games, right? So, but I keep going back to those 14 draws. I keep going back to that, being more efficient around the edge of the area, much more IQ around the edge of the area, much more devastation running through lines, to control the game state, because that leans into our super strength, which is defensive structure. So I'm focused on the first 15 minutes of games a lot more. I think we need to be really fast. Get back to fast start Arsenal. Remember that? Then we controlled everything. Where did that period when we scored 1 million goals in the 18 games? Mate, Elliot, check those games out after 20 minutes. I think we were ahead in almost all of them after 20 minutes. I'd love to see that data. We just devastated, whether it's a set-piece goal or what. That first goal came. When the first goal came, the pitch opened up and we killed teams. 4s and 5s, bunches, 6s even. We killed them in bunches, right? Because we controlled the game state. Really, I want to see us get back to that.
Yeah, my goals for the manager, he says, realizing how absurd it is for me to even speak that sentence, are tied to this question from RMB, who says, not sure how to send mailbag questions, but here goes. Hey, RMB.
Made it.
You just sent a mailbag question. You did it. You just put it in Discord under the mailbag questions area, and that's how you do it. If we don't win anything major this season, if we don't win anything major this season, why, knowing what we do now, do you think that would be? And vice versa, if we do win. And so this is tied to my thing with the manager, which is simply, if we don't win anything major this season, taking out the obvious stuff of like everybody gets injured again, right? Mm-hmm. I think it will simply be that we run into the problem we ran into last season. Too many draws, too many times when we're unable to turn control of games and dominance in games into dominant scorelines. And we simply have to lose this thing. And that Mikel has to find a way to either instill this in the players or change it tactically. I felt too many times watching Arsenal last season that we considered it a goal when we just had possession in the final third. Mm-hmm. There were times I'd watch us and it felt like Saka back to Odegaard, knock it over to Rice, knock it back to Gabriel, back to Odegaard, give it to Timber, give it to Saka. And like, we were happy to do it. We've got control. We're in our shape. We're dominating the game. It's 1-0. And look at us. We've got it. Without really having the intensity to turn that into some kind of pressure on the defense to be pulled out of their shape and to create a chance. And there has to be more than just final third possession. I get that we are field tilt champions of the world. We need to be closer to Liverpool and City, if not ahead of them, in XG per 90, in shots per 90, in big chances created. And to do that, we can't just have the ball in the final third. We have to use the ball more urgently in the final third. That's the thing I'd like to see. Sometimes I felt we were resting in games by having possession in the final third. And Clive, if we don't win, I think it'll be because we don't turn that dangerous possession into dangerous chances. We get chinned, and we have too many of those 1-1s where we were 1-0 up and they get a goal out of nothing because they shoot from 30 yards, it gets a deflection, it finds the back of the net, and we're going, how are we so unlucky? And it's that we opened ourselves up to that variance by not turning our dominance into chances. That's how we don't win something, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you've obviously got recent history in your mind, so
I do.
Again, and it's in all our minds. So what you said there, no one could disagree with. But
Someone will.
Sometimes we play 2-0 football at 1-0. And that's what
you're saying. Yeah.
2-0 football, 1-0. And I'm watching these games pan out.
Yep.
And the referee decides to enter the room. And suddenly, without 10 men, it's like, for God's sake. How's this happened? And we cry ourselves to sleep. We have a referee podcast. But really...
The Saliba penalty against Brighton.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So many
something
of
changes the game. Yeah.
And it's something that's missing in the group. So we have to change it. We have to have a more offensive desire. That's number one. This is the stuff you would coach and say. So we have to change our behaviours. As we're jogging back to halfway line, high-fiving and doing whatever, the shout should be, it's 0-0, lads. It's 0-0. Let's go again. Let's go and get the second. And when you get the second, we flip different shapes and we change the shape of the pitch and we bring on people who can counter. Martinelli suddenly becomes a hero because he can travel up the pitch and they can't come on to us because we've got the speedster there. So we've got to stop playing 2-0 football at 1-0 and really have that offensive desire. I'll come back to change things. But I think we're trying to add those people earlier. I think, I was, very much from last pre-season, very much a Sesko fan based on what I'd just seen Havertz do. I thought to have two of him would be the way to sustain that level of football. I didn't think the false 9 thing was going to work anymore. I wanted like a bigger target man 9 to hit. And as the year went on, I changed. I changed because I could see Havertz in the gym on my Twitters, and I thought, well, we don't maybe not need another one of Havertz. We need something else. And just listening to Gyokeres and reading interviews about him, he has a single mindset about goal scoring, and we haven't had that in the club for a long time. And that's a miss. That is a miss. Football is about goals. It's not always about combinations and the collective. It's about that last action, that last thing. They're the things you remember. When Declan Rice stuck it top corner, I'll never forget it. Never forget it. For all the things he did, the tackles he won, he's the only player in the PFA Awards this year from Arsenal. He's done his job. But those goals will stay with me forever. It's the goals you remember, the last action. They're the things that make you excited. And I think we just need to up our desire to do that more often from everybody. We brought a couple of selfish blokes in up front that really want to attack the box, hit the box hard, hit shots, high box touches. That's 2. Let's get another one. And shake this show up. Let's shake it up. Doesn't mean the players are bad. They'll have to adjust. Maybe rather than lay it off, they've got to take their shots. Be more aggressive to get in position and stay in position to get their shots. If they don't, they're not going to play. Do you see what I mean? So it changes the mentality of the group. So I want to see another one come in that's goal focused, last action focused, because then it makes everybody think, what do I need to do to stay in this room to keep my job? They have to change. So there you go.
There is a part of me that thinks all of this analysis, and I'm sorry to undercut it, Clive, because it was really well said, is that dumb guy, smart guy meme, the bell curve meme, where on the left it's like, need player who kick ball and net good.
I said that.
And in the middle of it, it's like, we need wide progression that leads to central access, that leads to more XG per shot. And then on the other side of the bell curve is, need guy who kicks ball and net good. It's the genius on one side and the dummy on the other. And it's like, there is a part of me that's like, when we had 16-year-old Ethan Nwaneri, or 17 or whatever it was, 17-year-old Ethan Nwaneri, and central midfielder Mikel Merino, and Gabriel Martinelli up front, wow, our attack just didn't look very good. Meanwhile, Erling frickin' Haaland is at City, and Mohamed Salah's breaking records at Liverpool, and they've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, one of the most creative players in the history of the league, full stop. And weird, they look pretty good. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Football actually often winds up being about the most talented players being in their best form.
Yeah.
Ousmane Dembele is one of the best players in world football. Doué and Kvara are right up there. And, that team looked pretty good when they were all flowing and in form.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wonder if, the reason peak Barcelona won as much as they did was Pep Guardiola's brilliant tactics. That might have been some of it. You know what might have been some of it? Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, and this guy named Messi, and Suarez, and Thierry Henry. And it's like, there is a part of me that just thinks, you want to win everything? Forget the nitpicking over tactics and go buy Eze and Leao. Go buy the play. We've got Gyokeres. He kicks ball hard in net. That's going to help. How about a guy who slides little cute passes in and can score from outside the box? How about a guy who can dribble past someone off the left instead of dribbling it out for a corner? Like, there is a part of me that thinks as much as coaches matter, and they clearly matter, they can never matter as much as someone who can score 25 goals in a season or give you 17 assists. And that is fundamentally the disconnect in football. We always are going to point to a manager when a project isn't coming to fruition. But at the end of the day, the best players win the most stuff. They just do.
You won't get that.
And we need the best players.
Yeah,
so,
we do.
Yeah.
And we'd all, well, many of us would like Leao and Eze to come in and that's it. We'd all like the shiny next thing, right? But I will say that Mikel Arteta has given us a great platform from which to succeed from. But it's clear. The numbers are out there. We haven't invested in those forwards as we should have done. Let's be honest.
No chance.
Martinelli and Saka have been brilliant for us, but he didn't buy them. Do you know what I mean? And so we haven't invested in those areas enough. We've made a great job with Trossard. Kai Havertz, people will complain about him and where he was originally bought from. I think he was bought to play up front and in midfield, and they weren't too worried with where he was. But he ended up being the better centre forward because we lost the other one. The investment in Jesus has been something that's worked in periods, but has maybe failed over the longer period just due to health and fitness, right? So, and that was his major investment as a forward, So now we're investing, and so this is it now. We're investing in forwards, and it's the right thing to do. And you made a great point there about the other forwards in the other teams. When we turn up with our forwards, I think people think, Arsenal can score. They scored the third most in the league, and they scored the record 91 goals the year before. But we just score it in such a varied way. There isn't a point where you go, apart from Saka, where I'm petrified. Right? If there's only one point where you're petrified, you know what you do? You kick that point until you can't get up anymore. Yeah. And that's what's happening. And so we're getting slowed down on that side, and we're looking a little bit slower and a little bit stale. But that's evolution. If you don't recognise that and don't change, that's the problem you have. I think we've recognised it, and I think we're about to change. And I'm looking forward to these two games massively this week. I can't wait. And to see if I can see some behaviours and just some tactical tweaks, even if it's only small doses of, you can see what the messages have been sent to players based on how they react in transition in particular, how they react to each other on certain actions. You get away with them when you're in the first phase of your pre-season. Now we're looking for tactical nuances to prepare for the Manchester United game and to top up minutes for certain players who could be behind, like Gabriel and Timber, for example. Top them up. People need topping up, top them. There's a period here where we need to show ourselves. And it's what we're about. And this is coming this week, mate. And probably a behind closed doors friendly, I presume, next week in the middle of the week to finalise a few things before we go out to OT.
I think before we get out of here, we absolutely have to, and that's all really well said, and I agree with it. Look, we're going to be talking about these topics for a long time, so let's save some meat on the bone, as we go. But best players tend to win best stuff. Let's make sure we have the best players to the extent possible. There are questions about Liverpool and Saudi Arabia and what's going on there. And Zazima asks, hi, are we concerned how Saudi will pretty much fund the Liverpool Isak purchase with them buying Nunez? Liverpool seem to continue to be fortunate with their business relationships there. 2023 sales and now this. They did invest an awful lot of money in the Live Golf Tour. There's some reporting, and I don't know if it's reporting or just rumors, that they were going to invest potentially in Saudi football, and they are looking into multi-club ownership, and the multi-club model is continuing to make life easier for some clubs. I don't know if you heard my transfer daily, Clive, but I absolutely love that Girona and Manchester City were able to find an agreement on a move like that. That's heartwarming, seeing those two clubs able to negotiate in good faith together. Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's just, that's amazing how two clubs like that can find a deal that helps them both. But, all kidding aside, what do you think about this current situation between Liverpool and Saudi Arabia? Nunez to Saudi, Isak to Liverpool, Newcastle get out of their PSR woes with Isak money. Liverpool get out of their issues with Nunez money, and everybody shakes hands and walks away happy, except for Newcastle fans and Arsenal fans. But that's another story.
I'm sure Newcastle fans will recover down the road when their owners can flex their muscles, and I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine.
Might get Sesko, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll probably end up with that. And this is top level business, right? So I don't want to go too deep into it because I haven't read up enough, and I'm not an expert in this space, but it doesn't smell great, right? But it feels like Arsenal, we're like no one wants to play with us in the playground. we're like Arsenal. No one wants to play with us because we're like an establishment club. We do things the right way, and blah, blah, blah. The moment we don't, we get told about it. But we're Arsenal, and we got no friends out there. None, right? So we have to do things our way and be happy with it, you know? And that's important to me. I don't want, I never wanted. Oh, I'm going to say this now, but it did cross my mind. Would it be nice to get somebody just come along and just bring all the money and just get rid of all the debts? We've all thought about that in our time, right? So
95 million for Martinelli now.
Just come along and
65 million for Leo.
Just buy the club and just make us the richest club in the world. Well, Newcastle have got that. And how does it feel? They won their first trophy. It feels probably frustrating for them. They can't really flex their financial muscles. But I'm cool with the way we do things, right? I am, and I get frustrated that we find it so difficult to move people on. I look around and everyone else seems to get the numbers they want, and you look behind it, you just wonder why is that happening. But I can only wonder, he says allegedly. I can only wonder, and hope that our new crazy hard-working sporting director can find some new connections that we didn't previously have to move people out of the building, so we can get the pretty players we want to come in that can hold our dreams. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's dangerous to wade too strongly into this area because I'm certainly not an expert on it. My one question in the back of my mind is, Liverpool have a guy in Michael Edwards who's very, very good at this squad building stuff. But if you want to build relationships with the Saudi Public Investment Fund or whatever, it's not Michael Edwards doing that. It's John Henry. Right? It's the owners. It's the billionaires talking to billionaires. And so I wonder, Stan or Josh, are the Cronkies engaged in having those kinds of conversations to build those relationships that can provide you some, I don't want to say dodgy, because I don't even know if it's dodgy, but just some friendly relationships that wind up supporting your interest and you support their interest. There's a mutuality of interest. Because I don't think Andrea Berta is going to have those high-level conversations with the Saudi Public Investment Fund. I don't think Michael Edwards is. That's something that happens at the absolute top of the food chain. And I realize I'm getting into an area I don't know well, but I would suspect that these kinds of things, when Chelsea get bailed out by someone or do a weird deal, it's Todd Bowley doing it. When FSG do it, it's John Henry. And I do wonder if, and maybe they are, by the way, maybe Stan and Josh are having these kind of conversations with the absolute most influential people in the game behind the scenes. But I think that's the only way that these kind of deals come to fruition.
Yeah. I suppose you have to look after our own priorities. If I'm Arsenal, and some of this is out there, so I'm not speaking at a school or anything like that, we've got an Emirates deal coming up in 2028. There are chats around changing the ground, upgrading the ground to get to 80,000. I'm sure the execs in the club are focused on that and focused on getting funding in for that to make sure that it doesn't affect the football side. We've gone down that path before, and it did affect the football side. And I think we have to deal with our own priorities, where the game is going, make sure we can up our revenues, commercial value going up. We just cracked 600 million for the first time. This is where we're heading. So how we get there is going to be interesting. So the execs live 2-3 years in the future to us. I'm sure they're the things that they're focused on. How can they get more out of the Adidas deal? I'm sure there are things that they're just working towards, right? So, and this reinvigoration of the squad is a key step. The re-signing of players is a key step in that, because football underpins your ability to go to people to borrow money, etc. They underpins. That's why I come back to that statement. What does success look like? You just have to compete at the top level. What do we fans want? We want to win. What do the execs want? If I'm at the top level, I can project forward. and that's the key with confidence, to grow this club, to be a true custodian for us going forward. That's what they think. And primarily, and they want the trophies as well. So they're investing in that. So it took a while to get here. We're here. We maybe dropped a couple of years on the way here, right? We dropped a couple post-COVID years to clean the squad out. Probably took a year longer than it should. And then we maybe paused in the last Edu summer, shall we say. So you maybe dropped a couple of years in this project. But we're well positioned now to go forward. So I look forward to it.
Last one, and we'll do it very quickly, but I can't leave without asking this one because I think it's a nice light question. This comes from Alessandra Hedgeblog. We have a tough opening.
Very.
How many points would be a good return? And let me read you the fixtures we're talking about. It's first 6. United away, Leeds at home, Liverpool away, Forest at home, City at home, Newcastle away.
Oh, dear.
It's I think the most difficult first 6 fixtures I've ever seen for Arsenal in the Premier League.
Yep.
It includes Newcastle, Liverpool, and United away. It includes City. Forest were, no easy points. I mean, what's good? So let's assume for it to be good, it's going to require 3 at home to Forest and 3 at home to Leeds. That's 6. So of those other 4, United away, Liverpool away, Newcastle away, and City at home. What do we have to do there?
So what's that? How many games? That's 6 or 7 games?
It's 6. I'm going to say reduce it to the 4. What do we have to do in the 4? In Liverpool away, United away, Newcastle away, City at home.
I do think United away is a really important one. Honestly, I know it's only the first game, but I do think it's really important. I mean, we've been set up badly there. Really been set up for a kicking, haven't we? And when you talk about short-term goals, I just want to make sure after those first 6, 7 games that we're all still friends. That's my first goal, because it could be anything, couldn't it? It could be anything. But if we do well in those games, we are really well positioned. I do have a little worry about the physical state of certain players who we haven't seen yet, particularly the forwards, really, what shape they're going to be in. But yeah, I keep saying it, but this week is really, these 2 friendlies are important. But yeah, United, we can deal with United, and I watch them. They're running about a bit, Elliot. They're counter-pressing a little bit more. Brian and Bremer can hold that ball. So can Cunha. They're available to receive it, and their first one touch around the corner is nice. They look good, but then they don't look good. And you see Bruno in the corner of his area playing someone on side for the back post. What's he doing there? So they've still got structural issues. They've still got individuals that don't stand what they should do. So I still think you can pick them off. But they're better than they were. And they couldn't be much worse. They got a lot to achieve. So for me, I'm focused on that first game massively. And then from there, I think we'll gain a lot from that position. That leads into the second game, the home game. And from there, I think we're going to be in good shape health-wise. So I look at the 3 games first in block, because I think it's international break after 3 games. Those first 3 games, if we can come out of there with 9, I tell you, the international break will be beautiful. And then we can really see what we're about. And then we go to the next ones with a little bit more confidence.
Any conception of that run of 6 games requires 6 points from the Forest and Leeds games at home. So I'm going to set those aside and say from the other 4, 8 from 12 would be the bar I'd set. 2 wins, 2 draws. Try to win at Old Trafford. Hope you beat City at home or beat Newcastle away. The key is don't lose to City or Liverpool, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think those are the teams we're directly competing with, any loss in those fixtures is really, really damaging. So, don't lose at Anfield, because obviously if you do that, it mandates winning at the Emirates, but it gives you that much lower margin for error over the course of the season. So my requirement would be 8 from those 12, but then 14 from those 18 would be a really, really good return, obviously.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because they fear us too, by the way. You listen to Liverpool channels, they know what we're trying to do, what we're trying to be. And they're excited about their potential signings, obviously. But they look around and we're not in bad shape. So let's see how we do.
We've been going for ages. Let's stop now. We'll have patron stuff all this week. Lots of good stuff coming up. We're going to do our season prediction pod not too far in the distant future. We'll have instant reactions after the Villarreal and Atleti games. So come join us. AVP50 is the code. You get half off the first month. You're paying a couple bucks to get pretty much a pod every day during the week, and even now that the games are back on the weekend as well. And I keep hearing that if you give us a review, that actually helps people discover the pod. So if you don't mind on Spotify or Apple or wherever you are, if you give us a 5-star review or like or subscribe or do whatever the thing the kids are supposed to do these days, apparently that helps people find us, and we'd love to have more people find us and come join and be a part of this. So thanks for the great questions. Thanks for listening. This was a really fun chat, and I know we've been going a long time. So if you've made it this far, gold star for you. Clive, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. I love you very, very much. We all love you. And we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Villarreal 0.